The silence in the living room was the first warning. I walked through the front door, carrying my 7-year-old daughter, Sophia, her chest still rattling against mine from 3 nights in the ICU. She was too weak to walk, so I carried her straight to the corner where her high-flow oxygen concentrator always sat. It wasn't there. There was just a rectangular outline of dust on the hardwood floor. Panic spiked in my throat, but then I looked through the bay window into the backyard. My sister Ashley was standing under a massive balloon arch, surrounded by pink and blue smoke canisters. There was a catering van in the driveway, and my parents were popping champagne. They hadn't been robbed. They had made a choice. They sold the machine that kept my daughter alive to fund a gender reveal party. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I turned around and walked out the back door to confront them. Before I tell you how I turned a pile of trash into a $4.2 million weapon, tell me, what is the one thing in your house that is absolutely off limits? The heat in the garage was suffocating, a stark contrast to the sterile chill of the ICU we had just left. I buckled Sophia into the back seat of my sedan, hooking her up to the portable travel tank. The battery indicator blinked at 40%. That gave me 2 hours. I'm Madison Miller, and I'm 29 years old. For the last 7 years, I have defined myself by what I endure. I am a pharmacist who works double shifts on her feet to pay for inhalers. I am the daughter who pays the mortgage on a house I'm not allowed to decorate. I am the invisible engine that keeps this family running while they treat me like a spare part. But as I turned back toward the garage to grab the backup nebulizer, my mother, Patricia, blocked the doorway. She was wearing a pastel pink dress that cost more than my car payment, holding a clipboard like a weapon. "You're making a scene," she hissed, her voice low so the guests on the lawn wouldn't hear. "Get that junk out of here. Ashley needs this space for the gift table." "Where is the plug-in concentrator?" I asked. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, hollow and distant. Patricia rolled her eyes, checking her watch. "I sold it. Marketplace. A nice lady picked it up this morning. You have the portable one, Madison. Stop being dramatic. She doesn't need 2 machines. It's greedy. Greedy. And while you're at it," she kicked a cardboard box near her feet, "take this trash to the dumpster." I cracked the old floor safe to make room for the catering supplies. "It's just Grandma Betty's old hoarding papers. Get it out of my sight before the videographer arrives." She turned on her heel and marched back toward the balloon arch, adjusting her hair. I looked at the box. It was filled with yellowed envelopes and dust. I bent down, intending to drag it to the curb, just to get it over with, just to leave. But as I lifted a stack of papers, the sunlight hitting the dusty concrete caught a specific watermark. I froze. I work with controlled substances and insurance documentation every day. I know what official paper feels like. I pulled the top sheet out. It wasn't junk mail. It was a stock certificate. Amazon.com, Incorporated. Dated May 1999. Underneath it was another, NVIDIA Corporation. Dated October 1999. And stamped across the top of every single page, in red ink that had faded but not disappeared, were 4 letters. UTMA. Uniform Transfers to Minors Act. Custodian, Betty Miller. Beneficiary, Madison Miller. My hands started to shake, the paper rattling loud in the quiet garage. Patricia thought this was trash. She thought Grandma Betty was just a senile woman who hoarded newspapers. She didn't know that Betty had been a secretary at a tech firm in the 90s who believed in the internet thing. I pulled out my phone. I didn't need to do complex research. I just typed in the QSIP numbers. The results loaded instantly. The splits. The growth. The compounding value over 25 years. I did the math once. Then I did it again. $4.2 million. My mother had been sitting on a fortune legally belonging to me, treating it like garbage, while I scraped change together for asthma medication. My phone buzzed again. A notification from my bank. Transaction complete. Foreclosure buyout successful. I had almost forgotten. This morning, at 6 o'clock, sitting in the hospital chair, I had made a desperate, terrifying move. I knew my parents were 3 months behind on the mortgage. I saw the foreclosure notice they tried to hide in the mail pile last week. I had drained my entire 401k and used every cent of my emergency fund to buy the debt from the bank online. It was a Hail Mary pass to keep a roof over Sophia's head if they kicked us out. I looked at the screen. The deed was recorded. I looked at the certificates in my hand. $4 million. I looked at the house. My house. The shaking stopped. It didn't fade away. It snapped off, like a switch. The fear that had lived in my chest for 7 years evaporated, replaced by a cold, heavy weight. It felt like armor. I carefully folded the certificates and slid them into the inside pocket of my jacket, right next to my heart. Then I walked over to the breaker box on the garage wall. I didn't flip the switches. Not yet. I walked out of the garage and toward the backyard party. Patricia was laughing, handing a glass of champagne to a neighbor. Ashley was posing for a photo, holding her baby bump. They looked so happy. They looked so secure. I stepped onto the grass. I wasn't the daughter who paid the bills anymore. I was the landlord. And rent was due. I walked into the backyard, my boots sinking slightly into the manicured lawn. The party was in full swing. 50 people were holding plastic flutes of cheap champagne, their faces turned toward the massive projection screen set up near the pool. My sister Ashley stood in the center, glowing in a white maternity dress, holding a pin. She was about to pop the giant black balloon that would shower us all in confetti, while a slideshow of her ultrasound photos played on the screen behind her. "Okay, everyone!" My father, Gregory, shouted into a microphone, his face flushed with pride and day drinking. "Count it down. 10. 9. I didn't stop walking. I moved through the crowd like a ghost. No one looked at me. They were too focused on the spectacle. They were cheering for a baby that would have a nursery, a stroller, and parents who adored it, while my daughter sat in a car 50 feet away, struggling to pull oxygen from a battery pack. I reached the AV table. The videographer was a college kid, focused on his camera viewfinder. He didn't see me until I reached for the HDMI cable connected to his laptop. "Hey," he whispered, startled. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer. I didn't look at him. I unplugged his laptop and jammed the cable into my phone. The screen flickered. The slideshow of ultrasound pictures vanished. The music cut out with a sharp static pop. A collective groan rose from the guests. "Hey, what happened?" Ashley whined, lowering the pin. "Dad, fix it." Then the image stabilized. It wasn't pink. It wasn't blue. It was a high-resolution PDF document. Warranty deed. Grantee. Madison Miller. Date recorded. Today, 8 o'clock in the morning. A hush fell over the yard. It was the kind of silence that feels heavy, like the air pressure dropping before a tornado. People squinted, trying to understand why a legal document was replacing the gender reveal. I swiped left on my phone. The image changed. Portfolio balance. Total value. $4,218,903.42. Asset class. Custodial trust. I heard a gasp from the front row. It was my Aunt Linda. She knew what those numbers meant. I took the microphone from the table. It screeched slightly as I gripped it. My father turned, his face shifting from annoyance to confusion when he saw me standing there, backlit by the glow of my own net worth. "Madison?" he barked. "What the hell is this? You're ruining the moment." "I'm not ruining the moment," I said. My voice didn't shake. It boomed through the PA system, bouncing off the siding of the house I now owned. "I'm clarifying it." I looked at Patricia. She was frozen near the balloon arch, her eyes locked on the screen. She recognized the account number. She recognized the format. The blood drained from her face so fast she looked like a wax statue. "You sold my daughter's lungs for a party," I said. "So I bought your house." Ashley looked at the screen, then at me, then at Mom. "What is she talking about?" "Mom, make her stop. This property is now legally mine," I continued, addressing the guests. "The foreclosure was finalized this morning. I paid the bank in full, which means you are all trespassing." I pointed to the gate. "The party is over. Get out." For 3 seconds, nobody moved. They were paralyzed by the sheer audacity of the shift. The atmosphere curdled from celebration to a crime scene. Then Ashley burst into tears. Not quiet, graceful tears. Screaming, foot-stomping tears. She threw the pin on the ground. "You jealous bee. You always have to make everything about you." "It's my day." Gregory charged toward me, his fists balled. "Turn that off, you ungrateful little." "Don't," I said. I didn't step back. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Dad. I'm not the tenant anymore. I'm the landlord. And I'm evicting you." Patricia moved then. She didn't run to comfort Ashley. She didn't come to yell at me. She walked toward the house phone mounted on the patio wall, her eyes wide and terrified. But it wasn't the terror of a mother who had been caught. It was the terror of a predator who realized the cage door had just locked from the outside. I thought I had won. I thought the shame would break them. I thought they would hang their heads and leave. I was wrong. I had just backed a narcissist into a corner. And I forgot the one rule of survival. A cornered animal doesn't surrender. It attacks. "Get out," I repeated, moving toward the heavy wooden side gate. I reached for the latch, intending to throw it wide open, and watch them file out like the intruders they were. I never touched the metal. A hand slammed onto the gate, just above mine. It was heavy, calloused, and unmovable. I looked up. Gregory was pressing his weight against the wood, his face inches from mine. The smell of cheap scotch and expensive cologne washed over me. "You're not opening anything," he said. His voice was low, a growl that vibrated in his chest. "You think a piece of paper makes you the boss here? You think you can embarrass us?" He slid the deadbolt home with a definitive thud. "Dad, move," I said. But the cold certainty in my chest was beginning to crack. He wasn't moving. He was blocking the exit. Behind me, the silence broke. It didn't break with an argument. It broke with a scream. It was a high, piercing shriek that sounded nothing like my mother and exactly like a victim in a horror movie. I spun around. Patricia wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the guests, her eyes wide, her hands trembling theatrically as she held her phone up like a shield. "She's got a weapon!" Patricia screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me. "Oh my God. She's going to kill us. She's having an episode." The guests scrambled back, knocking over white folding chairs. The confusion on their faces morphed into genuine fear. They didn't see a daughter confronting her parents. They saw a woman in a leather jacket shouting at a pregnant woman and an elderly couple. They saw what Patricia wanted them to see. "Mom, stop," I said, stepping forward. "Stay back," she yelled, backing into the balloon arch. She hit the speakerphone button. The dial tone purred for half a second before connecting. 911. "What is your emergency? Help me." Patricia sobbed. The tears were instant. It was a masterclass. "My daughter. She's here. She's on drugs. She broke into the house. She has a knife. She stole my retirement bonds from the safe and she's threatening to kill her sister." "Ma'am, are you safe?" "No, she's crazy. Please, hurry. 42 Oak Street." I stood frozen. The sheer, blackened audacity of the lie paralyzed me. "Drugs? A knife?" "I don't have a knife," I said, holding my empty hands up to the crowd. "I have a deed." She's lying, but nobody was looking at my hands. They were looking at the driveway, because the sirens didn't start in the distance. They whooped right at the curb. They had been patrolling the neighborhood for the party traffic. "Police! Drop it! Get on the ground!" The side gate didn't open. It exploded inward. 3 officers in tactical vests stormed the backyard, guns drawn. They didn't scan the crowd. They scanned for the threat, and the threat was the woman standing alone in the center of the yard, while the victim cowered by the balloons. "I said, get on the ground!" The lead officer roared. "I'm the homeowner!" I shouted, but I didn't get to finish the sentence. I was hit from behind. Hard. My face slammed into the manicured grass. The air left my lungs in a rush of pain. A knee pressed into my spine, pinning me down with enough force to bruise bone. "Hands behind your back." Now, I didn't fight. I couldn't. My arm was wrenched backward, the shoulder joint popping painfully. The cold bite of zip ties cinched around my wrists. "Suspect secured," the officer yelled into his radio. "We have the suspect." Gravel dug into my cheek. I turned my head, trying to breathe, trying to see. From my vantage point on the ground, I saw shoes. Expensive heels. Loafers. And then, a pair of pink satin pumps. Patricia walked over to where I lay. She stood next to the officer, clutching her chest, her breathing ragged and performative. "Oh, thank God," she wept. "She's sick, officer. She's been stealing from us for years to buy pills. She broke into the safe. She took everything." The officer looked up at her, his face softening. "You're safe now, ma'am. We've got her." Patricia looked down at me. For a split second, the weeping mask slipped. Her eyes went flat and cold. A tiny, almost imperceptible smirk tugged at the corner of her mouth. "You thought you could beat me?" the look said. "I gave you life. I can take it away." "Get her out of here," Gregory said, stepping up beside her, playing the stoic protector. "Before she hurts anyone else." The officer hauled me to my feet. The guests were staring. Phones out, recording the crazy daughter being dragged away in cuffs. The deed to my house lay in the dirt where I'd dropped it. The projector screen had gone black. I looked toward the driveway. Toward my car. Sophia. My daughter was alone in that car. The portable tank had a battery life. The windows were up. And I was being shoved toward a squad car. The trap hadn't just sprung. It had crushed me. The plastic zip tie bit into my wrist bone, cutting off the circulation to my hands. The lead officer hauled me toward the squad car, his grip tight on my tricep. "Where is the weapon, ma'am?" he asked, his voice tight with adrenaline. "Your mother said you had a knife. Where did you throw it?" "I don't have a knife," I rasped, spitting gravel from my mouth. "Check my pockets. Check the ground. There is no knife." He didn't listen. He shoved me against the warm metal of the cruiser. "Stay down." I pressed my forehead against the patrol car window, watching the distorted reflection of my parents standing on the porch. Patricia was dabbing her eyes with a napkin, accepting a bottle of water from a concerned neighbor. Gregory was pointing at me, shaking his head like a heartbroken father, dealing with a junkie child. It was a perfect performance. And as I watched them, the last 4 years of my life flashed through my mind, not as memories, but as a ledger. A balance sheet of cruelty. I remembered the first time I paid their mortgage. 4 years ago. Gregory had called me, weeping, saying the bank was going to take the house. I was 25, working double shifts at the pharmacy, eating ramen so I could afford Sophia's inhalers. But I sent the check. $2,800. I sent it every month. I thought I was saving them. I thought I was being a good daughter. I finally understood that I was never a daughter to them. I was an asset, an expense they could eliminate. 2 weeks earlier, a pulmonologist told me Sophia's lungs were too fragile for a standard nebulizer. She needed a hospital-grade concentrator. $3,000. Insurance wouldn't cover it until the new year. I called Patricia in desperation. I told her I couldn't make the mortgage, and that my child needed a machine to breathe. She refused. Calmly. Casually. They had just bought Ashley a Peloton for her nursery. I was told not to be selfish. Standing in front of an $800 balloon arch and a $2,000 catering van, the math became undeniable. Patricia hadn't sold the machine out of desperation or confusion. In her mind, my daughter's survival was an expense that threatened the golden child's happiness. To a narcissist, needs are zero-sum. If my child lived, Ashley lost. So the machine was sold to buy balloons. My daughter's breath became party currency. When the police restrained me, I was calm. I told them I wasn't on drugs, I had proof. My phone had been recording everything to the cloud. Her false accusations, her confession, the stock certificates she claimed I stole federal UTMA property in my name. The officer hesitated. Then Patricia produced a forged medical guardianship order, painting me as unstable and incompetent. The seal looked real. The doubt vanished. I was placed on a psych hold. Then Gregory calmly offered to take custody of Sophia. That's when I heard it. A thin, whistling sound from my car. The portable oxygen concentrator's battery had died. Sophia was suffocating. Something inside me snapped. I stopped begging and screamed a lie designed to trigger Patricia's greed cache hidden in the garage vents. She glanced at the vent without thinking. The officer saw it. Inside the vent was not cash, but receipts. $800 for balloons. And a handwritten bill of sale for Sophia's oxygen concentrator. Sold that morning. The live stream confirmed it. The buyer posted the serial number. Patricia was arrested for child endangerment, false reporting, and grand larceny. Gregory followed. I reached my car just in time. Used the emergency inhaler I always carried. Sophia breathed. That night, a new oxygen concentrator hummed in the corner of my house. The locks were changed. My parents were gone. The stock certificates were worth $4.2 million. I framed the balloon receipt. Some people cost too much to keep. If you've ever had to buy your own freedom, tell me your story.